All right, let's try a little thought experiment. We're going to take a concept we all think we understand, privacy, and just imagine it's gone. Poof, completely. What would a world without it actually feel like? And I mean, really, really think about that. Not just being watched in public, on a security camera. I'm talking always. No closed doors, no quiet moments to yourself, no space that is 100% completely yours. It's a pretty unsettling idea, right? And that's exactly where our experiment begins. So, this whole idea comes from a fascinating concept called the glass walls. And it's pretty much what it sounds like, a hypothetical world where our entire understanding of personal space is just shattered. Okay, so imagine a society that's built on something called forced fellowship. There are no physical walls, no barriers at all. Every room in your house is open for anyone to see. Every conversation you have is public, and every single action you take, well, it has an audience. You're basically forced to be neighborly because, there's literally no other choice. To really get what this means, let's stop thinking about it in some big abstract way. Let's bring it right down to a single, incredibly uncomfortable and very personal moment.
So picture it. You're at home with your family, it's the end of a long day, you're all just trying to connect, talk about your wins, your frustrations, a totally normal private family meal. And then someone else just shows up. That delivery guy who dropped off a package earlier, yeah, he's now just standing in the corner of your dining room watching you. He doesn't say a word at first. He just observes. So you finally ask him, can I help you? And he just says this, pretend I'm not even here. I mean, how could you? The pure absurdity of it, the violation, it's chilling. That one little sentence completely shatters the reality of the moment. Now, take that feeling and just stretch it out over your entire life. With a constant audience, how could you possibly have a difficult but necessary argument? How could you break down and grieve after a terrible loss? How could you ever just sit in comfortable, restorative silence? Really, how can you form a genuine identity if you can never, ever be offstage? That unbelievably uncomfortable dinner scene, that's not an exception in this world. In a world of forced fellowship, it's the rule. And this one fundamental change creates this massive, massive ripple effect across all of society. The consequences are pretty immediate and honestly devastating. Authenticity just dies. Why? Because you can't be your messy, complicated, true self. You have to be an acceptable, public version of yourself at all times. So life becomes a constant performance. There's no private space to process difficult emotions like grief or anger. Spontaneity is just gone, because every action you take has to be pre-screened for public viewing. And true intimacy? Well, that becomes impossible when there's no us without a them watching. I mean, the contrast here is so stark. What we call spontaneity turns into constant self-censorship. Authenticity gets replaced by performance. Intimacy becomes a public spectacle. And maybe the scariest part, your rich inner life gets flattened into this carefully managed outer persona. We would literally lose the very things that make us human. Looking at this bleak picture kind of forces us to turn the whole question around. We've seen what we would lose. So what does privacy actually give us? This is where we start to see why those walls, whether they're real or metaphorical, are so incredibly important. So often, the conversation around privacy gets framed in this negative way. You've heard the argument, right? If you aren't doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to hide. It paints privacy as this shady space just for secrets and bad behavior. But what if that's completely backwards? What if privacy isn't a space for hiding things, but a space for building them? Think of it like a workshop where we construct our own thoughts, or a studio where we get to practice being ourselves before we go out and do a public performance. It's the safe harbor where we build the trust that's necessary for real intimacy. And this reframes the entire debate. Privacy isn't about having something to hide. What if it's about having a self, a family, and relationships that are precious enough to protect? What if privacy is the very thing that allows us to build something worth sharing with the world in the first place? Definitely something to think